Welcome, everyone, to today's discussion about AI. While my presentation is aimed at music store owners, I'm hoping it'll be useful for pretty much everyone. Let's get started. About me, I've been an AI geek for a while, and I am the AI columnist for Music Inc. magazine. I was actually trained to be an English teacher, so I love geeking out about language, but I've been with Family Piano Coast since 2010, ever since I graduated. So we're going to go through a lot of this very quickly. If you want a copy of the slide deck plus some other goodies, feel free to email me, brendan@familypiano.com. Thanks. So the most famous bit of AI has been ChatGPT. It's an example of a large language model, and basically it's been trained on a lot of language, most of the internet. It's analyzed billions of words and the distances between each of those words and how they relate to each other. So it uses all of that advanced math to do text prediction on what sounds most plausible. It's most likely to be true. So it's like a very, very smart autocorrect. And then OpenAI hooked it up to a chat interface back in November 22, and it really, really took off. And part of that's because it's just so smooth talking. The language is so natural. It's very confident and very believable, for better or worse. Now, a lot of people ask me, what does GPT stand for? So you can sound a little bit smart if you remember this. Generative pre-trained transformer. So generative means it just generates words. Pre-trained means that it was given a bunch of language before it was officially trained and officially kind of shaped into what it is today. And transformer is the cool name for the type of data structure that Google invented back in 2017 and made open source for everybody. It powers pretty much all the language stuff nowadays. So let's dive into what AI can and can't do a little bit. One, it cannot just write a 10-page paper for you. One, the language in it is going to be very AI sounding after a while. The output can only put out like 200-300 words at most. So it's going to be good with chunks, but not the whole thing. It's mildly creative, but you need to do some prompting to get something that's more engaging out of it. And most importantly, with this sort of stuff, don't trust it. Don't trust the output that it's going to be perfect. The technical term is hallucinate, is when it puts together all of these very plausible words in a way that's not really connected with reality. Sometimes that happens. So just use your critical, creative thinking skills. You're on the internet, after all. So when you see all these cool Pinterest crafts that look perfect and they say they're so easy, they might not be so easy. Likewise, memes on Facebook don't necessarily tell the most politically nuanced, complete story. So just use critical thinking. Don't trust everything it says. And for that reason and others, I don't think AI is going to take everyone's jobs. It's very good at specific tasks, but not necessarily the whole job. Most of our jobs are very messy, involve interfacing between all sorts of different systems and different people and different companies. And honestly, people like working with people. So if you're an employer, please don't fire your social media person because AI can just do it. Don't jump out of the airplane and then figure out how the parachute works. That's going to be just bad news overall. So with ChatGPT is one of the most popular models. We'll start there, but we're going to explore a couple other models as well. So GPT-4 is kind of the most powerful model that OpenAI has released so far. It's been trained on billions of words, billions of parameters, lots of fine tuning, and you mostly interface with that via the ChatGPT Plus interface. So you kind of get direct access to the model and all the features that OpenAI kind of bakes into it. Copilot, Microsoft has invested billions and millions of dollars into OpenAI and such to get access to GPT-4. And they kind of put their own models into it and have their own filters and all of that. So the output that you get from Copilot will be different than what you get out of ChatGPT. There's third-party companies that similarly kind of their own filters and their own access to ChatGPT or GPT-4. And so you might get different results from different companies. Some just don't even bother putting any kind of filter, any sort of thing. They don't really add a lot of value. So with with the free version of ChatGPT, you get access to kind of what was released a little over a year ago, and they actually just added voice discussion, which I'll show you guys in a little bit. That's pretty darn sweet. You can pay $20 a month for the plus version. I think it's super cool. I've actually, been subscribing since day one, and with that, you get their most accurate model, their most capable GPT-4 Turbo. It's going to be very fast, have a very large context window. It has a very large memory span. Plus, you get the voice feature, which I'll show you. Super cool. Vision, you can take pictures of anything, and it'll recognize objects. It'll recognize text, and then you can kind of have a conversation about that. Image generation, that's a whole nother topic, but it generates quite good images and it's quite convenient in there. It'll browse the web using Bing for anything it doesn't know. Code interpreter is a large language model. It's not good at math. So what it does is what we do. We just go get a calculator. Code interpreter is sort of like a calculator, but it runs Python and it can generate code and do other more sophisticated things that the large language model can't do on its own. Plus, it can plug into other outside services like Zapier, and we can build custom GPTs. So we're going to discuss that in a little bit as well. Another option is you can just go get GPT-4 for free, DALL-E 3 for free, upload images to it for free using the free Copilot option from Microsoft. So you should know it's going to be a little different. It's Microsoft's flavor, so the output's going to be different. It has a lot more ads. It searches Bing a lot, so it is oftentimes much slower. Usually the features that OpenAI releases show up in ChatGPT first, and then later show up in Copilot. So, you still might want to, pay dollars for the OpenAI version, but you can pay for integration with Microsoft 365, OneDrive, all your other Microsoft data in here. So leveraging your own data can be really powerful. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And Claude is a really nice product by the company Anthropic, which was formed by some OpenAI employees who split off to form this. And its advantage is it has the longest memory in the industry. It can take in about 150,000 words and remember these very, very long conversations, read very long PDFs, and process that. The output is still about the same output length as everybody else, about 200, 300 words. But the output tends to be quite natural, tends to be quite good. So check that one as a great free option for limited use, or you can pay like $20 a month for more usage. Bard was not a great option when it launched, but Google just released Gemini. Their Ultra model is designed to compete with GPT-4, and that one's coming out soon. It technically beats GPT-4 by a little bit on quite a few benchmarks. So we'll see how that works in the real world. Pro is designed to compete with GPT 3.5, and that one's free and quite good and already available on a lot of Google services. And I've been really impressed with it. And Nano is the local version on your phone, mostly for photo work. So why use Bard? It's very fast. And I've been really impressed with the output. It connects to by default, it connects to all of your Google Drive data, your emails, your calendar. So for better or worse, it'll use a lot of your stuff. So just be aware of that. You can turn that off in the labs options. And because it's connected to Google's indexing of the web overall, it's very up to date, and it can return results very quickly without doing a manual search every time. And it was trained on not just text, but also images, also video. So it's multimodal, designed across a bunch of different languages. Very, very cool. So if you don't like the big guys, you can go with open source. And the hub for that is going to be at Hugging Face, is the main hub for it. And they've got a bunch of benchmarks if you want to see how these different models compete on standardized tests. And the biggest open source option out there is put out by Meta, and that product is called Llama. So you can check that out if you'd like. Bunch of good things out there. Or if you want to check out a whole bunch of them in just one place, Poe is a great option for free. You can go and try a bunch of them for $20 a month. You can try out more powerful models, get much more usage out of it. OpenRouter is another one where you can try out a bunch of stuff for pennies per 1,000 words. So that's a great option. And Jasper is kind of a marketing platform using GPT-4, Claude, and Bard, and allowing you to put in one prompt and put out all sorts of different marketing assets with one prompt, which is pretty cool. And even if you don't sign up for a new AI product, it's coming to a lot of products that you use all the time. So, for example, in a Zoom conference, it can automatically come up with a transcript, automatically come up with summaries for your Zoom conversation, which can save you a bunch of time. So, if you're going in and comparing different models, go ahead and put the same prompt into a couple different ones, see the output that you get. You can see how these different models do on standardized tests at Hugging Face. I find my favorite way is checking out different blog comparisons where someone will put hours and hours of time into comparing these different models, and you can kind of read the results in 5 to 10 minutes. So at the end of the day, I think just pick one, run with it for a while, and then reevaluate every so often. So why bother using AI? First things first, I think you should be focusing on putting out better content, not just doing everything faster. We do a lot of research into our product descriptions for our pianos, and I just find a lot of just awful information out there. So please don't just put out a bunch of crap very quickly. AI can be great for improving each and every step of the creative process, and I think that's the main focus. And I think it can speed things up. Just don't make that your priority. First off, I think that early in the creative process, I love exploring a certain topic. And one way I love doing that is with a voice conversation, oftentimes in the car. So it's not taking away from my time at a desk sort of thing. So here's the OpenAI app right here. And you can hit this little headphone option right here and ask it a question, just kind of like a very smart Alexa. What are 3 situations where using an AI would give you better results than just searching it up on Google?
Great question. Here are 3 scenarios where using an AI like this one might be more beneficial than a simple Google search. 1. Personalized responses. If you need advice or suggestions tailored to your specific situation, AI can consider your unique context and provide a more personalized answer than a standard search result. 2. Complex queries or problem solving. For complex questions that involve synthesizing information from various sources or require problem solving skills, AI can analyze and integrate data more effectively. 3. Creative assistance. When you need help with creative tasks like writing stories, generating ideas, or even creating art, AI can offer original suggestions and generate content that would be hard to find through a regular search. In each case, the AI's ability to understand, process, and generate nuanced responses gives it an edge over standard search engines. Do you have any specific tasks in mind where you think AI could be helpful?
No, thank you. Have a good day.
You're welcome.
And then when you're done, you get a little transcript of everything that you've said so far, of what you put in and what the ChatGPT said. So I've had like hour-long conversations with it in the car. I think it's awesome. And in fact, Alexa just put out a free feature. So if you ask to talk to Character AI, you can talk to all sorts of chat bots that are pretending to be historic figures or fictional characters. So character.ai is kind of a fun little thing. But overall, voice conversations, I think, are a total game changer. Regardless of whether you use voice or just typing into it, I recommend using open-ended conversations about stuff that just don't require 100% facts, that don't require you to trust the AI. So things like, what are some promotional ideas for my business? Or how can I do some personal development task? Things like that are where it really shines. And this is kind of goes right into brainstorming. So this is, I think, my favorite use of AI is, help me give me some bunch of ideas for a title for this blog post. Give me a bunch of ideas for this other thing. And 10 to 15 ideas tends to be a pretty good starting point for me. It encourages to get past the obvious answers and just give me some more interesting answers. So give it a prompt, go back and forth with it, and it'll help your thinking. You'll help its thinking as you guide it. And you can get some really excellent results. One of the best things you can do is not just ask for generic small business promotional ideas. That's a better inquiry for Google. But rather, let's talk about combining variables. So I'm looking for promotional ideas for my piano store for St. Patrick's Day in Waukegan, Illinois. Give me 10 ideas. That's where it's going to really shine. And so you can really have fun with different ways of combining things that you wouldn't otherwise expect. Next up, if you want to draft some content, one way of just saying like, hey, I want you to write a blog post on this topic for me and just see kind of what you get. What does it look like? And then based off of that, you might say, you know what, looks overall good, but the structure of it isn't quite what I'd like. Let's figure out an outline and then draft it. And that's where I get the best results with AI, is by drafting an outline and then drafting the whole output. And then once you kind of get a draft, you can add to it. So you can add your experience, your knowledge, your thoughts, make it much more personal, make it much more human. Or you can ask the AI, hey, this one section could use more bullet points. Can you add more bullet points to it? What are some other arguments we might consider as you're drafting it? And then as you're kind of fine tuning it or rewriting it, I think it's worth noting that AI can be really helpful for people where English is their second language and they might feel like their writing isn't as fluent as they'd like. Or if you're an excellent musician, not a great writer, this can be a great confidence boost for you. If you're managing a team with all sorts of different people, a high schooler and someone who's retired and a stay-at-home mom, and just everyone has different life experiences, they can all contribute writing, and then you can apply a consistent brand voice. So to your customers, it's a much more consistent brand experience, which is great. You can have it trim things down some. You can have it expand certain sections if necessary. Rewrite for clarity is really handy. So there's a bunch of ways it can help you refine what you've been working on. You can also ask it to give you feedback. How is my blog post overall? What do you think of it? You can ask it for people from different opposing views. So, different race or gender or political or socioeconomic or kind of environmental perspectives. And just make sure you're not offending anybody on accident. And if you're not using an SEO tool, some really dedicated SEO tools, this can be an improvement off of nothing. So I also find that AI, instead of making me lazier, really helps me get a lot more done when I'm low energy. I don't have a lot going on. I wouldn't be able to do anything otherwise. And it helps me engage and break through writer's block and kind of get my creative juices going and tap into the stuff that makes me passionate. And I also find that sometimes I get stuck on something and it can help me kind of troubleshoot through it as I'm just asking questions. How do I get past this? So it can really help me unlock a lot of potential, which I really like. So how do we not just use it, but use it better? So let's dive into some prompting techniques. The most basic is let's just be specific. Give it lots of context. Go ahead and brain dump everything you want included in your output. So go ahead and tell it what format are you writing for is huge, because that'll affect the word choice and the length and whether it uses emoticons or bullet points or anything else. And what audience you're trying to reach to. It really does tailor the language to the audience in terms of like age and expectations, etc. And kind of, if you ask it to pretend to be a music store owner with 30 plus years experience for your blog post, great. If you're asking it questions about digital marketing, start the conversation by telling it to be a digital marketing expert. That'll improve the conversation right there. So you can also have it do a more tailored job of sounding more like you by giving it examples of your writing and asking it to describe your writing, and then using that as a starting off point so that in the future it will write things in a more professional, down to earth, serious, practical tone, like whatever you're going for. Experiment with those descriptors. Use a thesaurus if necessary to experiment a little bit. And then save that style description. You can put that into custom instructions in ChatGPT, whether it's free or paid, or you can just keep that in a separate Word document. And these style instructions will behave slightly differently in different models, so just be aware of that. One of the things is that the large language models across the board aren't very good at logic yet. They all try to skip steps and just come up with a whole bunch of text that sounds plausible, but will quickly veer off into left field. So oftentimes to get better results, especially in a larger document, you're going to need to ask it to think step by step. So you can say, here's all of this information to consider. Please start by doing step 1. And then let's do step 2, and then let's do step 3. So you can either ask it in the prompt to here's step 1, step 2, step 3, or you can just in the chat, here's step 1, you look at the result, and then say, all right, let's move on to step 2. So as we're going through the document, you might want something a little longer. You can't just ask it for 5,000 words. It cannot do that in one go. Typically, it's going to be like 150, 200, 300 words, occasionally as large as 500 words. But what you can do is you give it all this information, say, all right, I want you to do this one section, and then this section, and then this section. So each section is longer, and then you kind of patch together all these sections, and your final output will be a lot better. So that's kind of how you get longer documents in my experience. Speaking of longer documents, what I'd recommend is putting together kind of a template for certain tasks and give it just really long, detailed prompts. So these are called mega prompts. So for example, you might say, okay, for my product descriptions, I want to have an introduction, features, benefits, manufacturer, background, key specifications, how it compares to competitors, conclusion, boom, 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 boom. And then you just save that in a Google Doc or Word doc and just use that. So you can ask the ChatGPT or chatbot to generate a mega prompt for you, and then you can kind of start experimenting with that, see the results that you get. Go ahead and tweak that mega prompt and use that template to increase the quality of your output. And because it's a pretty well-defined task that you're going to be doing over and over again, that will help speed up your overall output significantly. So that's a great use of AI. And then in terms of sources of information, you can have it, if it doesn't know it within the inherent model, you can ask it to go ahead and browse the web. Go to Yamaha.com, look up the specifications there. You can upload PDFs or Word documents pretty frequently for it to analyze. The context window, as you're looking around, will make a big difference on how much it can take in. Now, you want to give it the least amount possible to get the job done. So just like if you were giving your 8th grader materials on their book report on Booker T. Washington, you would, if you gave them like 50 books to read all of them and try writing this 3-page paper, it would just be too overwhelming. But if you give them like 2 or 3 books to page through, much more manageable, you're going to get better results that way. Same thing with the AI. So remember that all of this is processed in and out probabilistically. It's making its best guesses at how all these words relate to each other. So it's not going to be foolproof. It's not going to be 100%. So again, don't 100% trust the AI on this. I did promise that we were going to talk about building your own models, but I will say that is really tough. It's a lot. So if you want to do that, go to Hugging Face. There's a bunch of guides on that, on Civet AI. Bunch of great stuff you can do, but I think 99% of you really just want to take ChatGPT and put your own information in. And so there are some third-party services like Ask Your PDF, WonderChat, Hansai. All of these will promise to use your own information, usually so you can put it on your website and customers can chat and get answers back. I find the quality on these are not great so far. There's a couple that are better than others, but you really need to test this before you start implementing this. So I don't fully trust these yet, but I do expect them to get better over 2024. So keep an eye on this for you. Basically, the way these things work is you ask a question, it then goes to a library, looks through it, pulls what it thinks it will need, and then adds that to your prompt to give to ChatGPT, and then it processes it and then gives you the answer. So a couple with custom GPTs with ChatGPT Plus is you can go ahead and upload files to it, up 20 documents that it'll read, and then you interact with it. And you can give it custom instructions on how it's supposed to behave, and then save it. It takes 5 minutes. It's pretty darn cool. I like the custom GPTs quite a bit. Now, you can also go into Google's Notebook LM, which is a free product right now, powered by Bard's mid-range option, and it's free, and it also will take 20 PDFs, and it's much more about like citing sources and being as accurate as possible. So that's another one to check out. It's not going to be available for other people to use, just for you and your information, unlike custom GPTs, which you can share with other GPT Plus users. And there's a bunch of great custom GPTs that are a lot of fun, very useful. Some of them like tech support advisors for like troubleshooting printers and stuff. So, or the I'm offended bot to make sure you're not saying something offensive. So, these are pretty cool. Now you can go into, I do want to talk briefly about some legal and ethical considerations of AI, because it's a bit of a problem that it went through and sucked up a lot of information on the web, processed it without consent of the content creators and without compensating them. And now it's competing with a lot of them, and affecting a lot of people's livelihoods. And it can confuse people on what's AI and what's not AI, very misleading sometimes. And it is affecting our experience on the web. So a couple things to keep in mind as you might use it. Please note that, yes, a lot of stuff out there is open data, public data on the web, but OpenAI can probably get away with it because it's so general purpose and it's pulled from so many different sources. Imagine if so Photoshop similarly can edit all sorts of different images, but if it could only take in Disney content and it only output Disney content, and it allowed you to Photoshop all sorts of Disney characters very easily, Disney would have some standing to sue them for. So why do you care? Please don't just go to a couple different sources like Sweetwater, Piano Buyer. Just take all of their content and use that for a bot. Please don't. You're going to get a lot of regurgitated information that quotes and parrots from them verbatim, and that's going to be a problem. So do work with your manufacturers, your vendors, your partners, the content that they want you to use. Go ahead and use that. And if you're taking content from other retailers or other sources in the web, cite it just like you would otherwise. So keep track of that stuff that you use. Don't use confidential data. Don't upload your customer database. Don't put credit card information in or vendor price lists. This does leak out sometimes. You do have human reviewers, and it does violate a fair number of laws around the world if you do that. So please don't. You might not be legally required yet to disclose that you used AI, but it's pretty likely that's going to come down the pike. And there are a fair number of platforms like Amazon Books, where it's a violation, and YouTube, a violation of terms of service if you don't disclose. So just get into the habit now, in my opinion. A lot of companies have gotten a lot of pushback by not disclosing it. Don't lie to your customers. They have the right to be able to make an informed decision on whether they want to trust your content, whether they want to engage with their content, whether they want to pay money to a company that uses AI, to be honest. So what we use is we use the byline like, hey, I wrote this with assistant from ChatGPT. So Wired has an AI policy, just sort of like a privacy policy that details how their staff can and can't use AI. I think that's super cool, and they link to that in articles. Or at the very bottom of your article, you might have in italics, this is how we use it. So how do we get started with this? One, I would recommend just signing up for an account, 30 to 60 seconds. There's a bunch of great free options out there, and it won't tap into your personal data or be any privacy violation for the most part. Bard's kind of the one exception for that, if you enable some of those accesses to data. Step by step, just start with like brainstorming. That's a great place to start. And then you can add it to other parts of your creative process. And keep learning, just keep engaging with it, experimenting with it, work with your team. I suspect there's going to be other people on your team who are really excited to start diving into AI, and others who are pretty hesitant. So talk to each other about what works, what doesn't work, what concerns do your team members have, what feels icky to them, where do they want to use it, how will it help them. And if you're a boss, please make sure to everyone that this is designed to make their jobs better and not replace them. So you might work up a guideline of what sort of uses are okay and not okay, and what kind of tools can you use and what you shouldn't use, and what the process is for that. And I also encourage you that as you start using AI, just kind of reconsider your role with it. You're less of a writer who's doing just the writing part of it, but more of like a producer. Like what goes into it, what comes out of it, what's the quality, how does this fit into the rest of your content strategy? How are you filtering things in and out? And what's the general vision for it? So overall, I think AI is super exciting. Right now we live in the future already. Right now, we mean Netflix and Spotify and VR headsets and Zoom calls and 3D printing and all sorts of cool stuff. So just remember, use the right tool for the right job as you're starting your AI journey. So thank you, everyone. I hope this is very helpful for you. Here's a few of my favorite resources. There's my email if you want a copy of the slide deck and some other goodies. So thank you, and I hope this was helpful.